Hey, welcome to the Battleground Podcast. I am so excited to have for our initial podcast Wisconsin Congressman Brian Stile. Brian Stile, great to have you with us.
Hey, Brian, good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Listen, you're a busy guy anyway, but you're certainly a busy guy on an issue that is very, very important to us here in Wisconsin. And this is not new for you. You've been interested in election integrity for a very long time. But now, with Republican majorities in the House and in the Senate, and with Donald Trump in the White House, there might be some light in the tunnel to pass the SAVE Act. Give us kind of an overview of what SAVE is.
In 50,000 feet, the SAVE Act is a really obvious bill that everybody should be for, but we get pushback from the Democrats. It simply says that in U.S. elections, only U.S. citizens should be voting. And we require proof of that when you go and register to vote. And so we have seen non-citizens voting in municipal elections in some of our most liberal cities, including in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. The left is trying to use Washington, D.C., other liberal cities as a petri dish to drive forward an agenda to allow non-citizens to vote. And we're simply pushing back and saying, no, we want to make sure that only U.S. citizens are voting in U.S. elections. I'll add one thing, Brian. The Democrats will often come back when we debated this on the House floor, and they'll say, sure, but it's already illegal for non-citizens to vote in federal elections. That's true. But at the core of it, this bill is about enforcement, right? It's illegal to evade Border Patrol and enter the country illegally. It's the enforcement that determines whether or not individuals are breaking the law. So we saw 4 horrific years under President Biden where people looked the other way, evaded the law and broke the law. Now with President Trump, where we're enforcing the law, we're preventing it from happening. So the SAVE Act is about putting some teeth into the legislation to make sure that we're actually enforcing the law to make sure that it's only U.S. citizens voting in U.S. elections.
Walk us through some of kind of the basic building blocks of the SAVE Act, because we've seen, as you know, state parties spent a lot of time on election integrity. We've recruited thousands and thousands of volunteers to work at polling places, either as poll workers or poll watchers. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of times we felt frustrated because we feel as though the teeth aren't there in the law. And that's something that the SAVE Act helps with.
Well, big time. It's saying when you come and register to vote, you just need to show that you're a U.S. citizen. It should be an easy and obvious step. There was a couple Democrats that voted with us that shows you that this is kind of common sense stuff. But the overwhelming majority of Democrats, over 200 Democrats in the House of Representatives, are trying to make it easy for non-citizens to be able to vote in U.S. elections. And so putting teeth in the legislation and actually making sure that we're enforcing the law to prevent non-citizens from voting in U.S. elections is essential. But you'll also see some states around the country that don't currently require photo ID. And so when you talk about this with your colleagues on the left that we have to do in Washington, where we're trying to beat in some common sense, they'll often tell you about how burdensome it is. But let's look at that as it relates to photo identification, right? The other day I was driving home and I pulled over and grabbed a 6-pack of beer. And as I walked in, the lady recognized me, said, "Hey, Brian, how you doing?" I said, "Great." Grabbed a 6-pack of beer. And she said, "Brian, I need to see your ID." And just like everybody, you pull your ID out of your wallet, you show it to the store clerk, and you're on your way. I just think it's absolutely nuts that we're protecting our beer more than we're protecting our ballots across the United States.
It's funny, Congressman. I never get that question. Maybe an age difference thing. But the truth of the matter, you know what blows me away about this, and you work your district super hard, you talk to people all over. This one's an 80 percenter. I mean, in the polling, you don't need a poll. Just in common sense, talking to people every single day, people go, of course you want voter ID. Of course you want these things protected. Why are the Democrats running into this buzzsaw on this thing?
Well, I think the Democrats actually want non-citizens to be voting in our elections. And you can look, again, I'll use the example of our nation's capital over there in Washington, D.C., about what happened. The D.C. City Council and the mayor actually passed a law that not only allows but encourages non-citizens to vote in municipal elections, things like mayor, district attorney, city council, etc. And in the most recent election, hundreds of non-citizens voted in Washington, D.C. for municipal elections. And just to give you an idea how absolutely crazy this is, Brian, an individual, say they're working at the Russian embassy in Washington, D.C., who resides in our nation's capital, for only 30 days is actually eligible to vote in municipal elections. And some individuals who are non-citizens clearly have. In our nation's capital, they don't even require photo ID. So the left is driving forward this radical agenda using cities like Washington, D.C. as a petri dish for the country. And when I began raising the flag on this and raising awareness as the chairman and the administration committee, a lot of people actually didn't even believe that this was occurring in our nation's capital. And so it's such common sense to normal people that they can't believe that there's not even a check to make sure that individuals are U.S. citizens. And when Congress wrote the motor voter laws and some of the laws in the past, the federal government currently requires when an individual gets a driver's license that they get voter registration material. Well, think about how this plays out in Illinois, the state to our south, a state that provides illegal immigrants with driver's licenses. The federal law is currently requiring, and this is our bill changes this, but the current federal law requires that a state like Illinois gives that illegal immigrant, when they get a driver's license, voter registration materials. This is absolutely nuts. This is why the cleanup is required. I say Congress broke it. Congress should fix it. And putting in place the SAVE Act, making sure that only U.S. citizens are registering to vote and voting in U.S. elections is common sense. Some people don't even believe that it's a problem because they can't believe that this system was ever created in the first place. But I think a lot of us never thought states like Illinois would give driver's licenses to illegal immigrants. And so we got to clean this up. The SAVE Act does it. It's all about protecting the integrity of our elections.
And most of the clerks I talk to, and I assume you hear this as well, they just want uniformity in the law. There's, with the immigration problem, the illegal immigration problem, with all these other things, they want uniformity in the law, and this provides that uniformity.
Exactly. And as a conservative, I just want one set of rules, one set of laws that applies to everyone so the game is played fairly. I'm a big football fan. I describe it kind of like football. You want a couple things. You want to know that the referees are not paid by either team. That's Zuckerbucks. That's why you got to get rid of third-party funding of anything in our elections. Then you want one set of rules that applies equally to everyone. You don't want 1 foot in for a touchdown, 2 feet in for a touchdown. That depends on your team, what city you're in. No, we want one set of rules that applies equally to everyone, and then allow the voters to decide the election. What we don't want is different rules in different jurisdictions for the referees paid by a third-party group. It's why all of the election integrity provisions that we're working on here at the federal level, and a lot of folks are doing it at the state level in Wisconsin as well, are so absolutely essential that we get them passed and signed into law.
Well, speaking of that, the SAVE Act now passed the House. You've seen what's coming from the Democrat side of the aisle. What's the roadmap here? What do you think happens, or what do we know about what may come down the road here?
So this is the good news. In last Congress, we had obviously Democratic control in the Senate and the White House. And so when we moved forward this legislation, the Senate refused to bring it forward. The good news is under Republican control in the Senate with John Thune, I think we have a real opportunity to bring this legislation forward and force the senators to vote on it. One of two things is going to happen when we do that, Brian. Either A, common sense is going to prevail. The American people are going to call upon their Democratic senators and say, you have to vote for this common sense legislation. In the alternative, they vote no, but then at least we know where our Democratic senators stand, that they're going to stand on the side of non-citizens voting. And then the voters need to hold those individuals accountable. So it's in the hands of the Senate. President Trump is supportive of this legislation, and his bully pulpit, I think, will be a big help at driving this and other election integrity provisions forward.
Brian Style, in our last few minutes here, a lot going on in Washington, that's for sure. This has been a busy couple of months for the president and certainly for you. Looking ahead the next 30, 60 days, what might people see coming out of D.C.?
I keep an eye on two big pieces of legislation. One is the reconciliation bill. That's what we're calling the big, beautiful bill. We're working on getting spending under control, making sure that we're securing the U.S.-Mexico border. And so we're in the thick of it in Washington, D.C., negotiating that legislative text to drive forward and deliver on President Trump's America First agenda. The other is our broader spending bills that we need to make sure that we're getting in line to make sure that we're no longer wasting money. We've seen a lot of evidence come out of Doge, areas where the US government was wasting taxpayer dollars. It comes as no surprise to a lot of us. This is our opportunity to clean it up. And so I'm excited with President Trump in the White House, Republicans in the Senate, Republicans in the House. We have a huge opportunity here, Brian, to turn the tide and get this country back on track. And those two pieces of legislation are going to be essential vehicles to get that done.
Wisconsin Congressman Brian Stile, chair of the House Administration Committee and the lead on the SAVE Act. I'm so relieved to have you working on this because finally, thanks to your efforts and what's going to happen with the Republicans in Washington, we can finally get there. I mean, you've been the leading person to take initiative on election integrity. So we're so appreciative back here for everything that you're doing.
I appreciate it, Brian Shannon. Keep an eye out on our investigative work into Act Blue as well. We'll get a chance to catch up on that next time. We're going to continue on our march on election integrity. Appreciate you for having me on.
Can't wait to have you back. Congressman Brian Stile, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Chairman, there's a lot happening at the party right now as we head into the state convention next week. I think the main thing people have been talking about is what we're doing for 2026 based on the 2025 election results. Can you talk a little bit about the goals of the Post-Election Commission and why you started it?
Yeah, so the day after the election, literally hours after the close of that election, I said I wanted to do a full review of the election. What went right? What went wrong? What should we be doing less of? What should we be doing more of? And so we started the creation of this commission, the 2025 post-election commission. And we made a lot of structural changes for this last Supreme Court election, unprecedented investments. The state party committed almost $10 million in transfers to Brad Schimmel alone. So we really stepped up very, very dramatically from what we've done in the past. We continue to prioritize minority outreach. We've dedicated four staff to just four staff members just to work on minority outreach and coalitional outreach. We did targeted radio ads to Hispanic and African American community. I mean, we really stepped up pretty dramatically from what we've done before. By the way, in total, here's something that people don't realize. In total, we talk about campaign spending a lot. In total, Brad Schimmel's efforts, the campaign, all the groups that helped him, in total, Brad Schimmel's efforts actually outspent Susan Crawford's efforts. And that's there's a misnomer out there that he was greatly outspent, and that's not true. When you look at the hard numbers, it tells a different story. Unfortunately, either way, the way it panned out, Brad Schimmel did not win the election. So what you look at an election like this and you go, okay, what are the key lessons that we can take away from that? So that's why we started the 2025 post-election commission. Analyze that race, the Supreme Court race particularly, and identify areas for improvement as we prepare to go in another one in 2026. So I asked State Treasurer John Lieber to chair this commission. He graciously accepted that assignment. And the review really will examine each facet of the campaign, because the campaign works itself autonomously, of the party operations, separate of the campaign, third party groups who are out there and try to be helpful. So that includes a lot of topics: messaging, field, minority outreach, election integrity, data, spending, advertising. There's a lot there, right? So based on the analysis that the commission will do, they'll develop a set of recommendations to guide strategy for future Supreme Court elections and beyond. These strategies will be shared with the campaigns and the outside group and party groups. Look, I'm not in favor. I've been part of a lot of post-election, or when I was running agencies or in private business or on charity. I've done, I've been through a lot of these, and I think they're important to do. I think you got to ask hard questions. So that's a process that we're going to go through now. Conservatives, we got to examine past elections and make adjustments to be successful in the future, spring elections particularly. And while conservatives came up short in the most recent race, we're not backing down. So John, the state treasurer, will head this team and evaluating everybody's efforts and identify a path going forward. Every election is critical. I honestly believe that, and can teach us lessons. This year's election wasn't last year's election, wasn't the election before that, and the election before that. So we look forward to seeing what the recommendations that the commission comes up with, and I'm hopeful about that. I'm really hopeful about that.
Yeah, I'm really hopeful too. And I know we also got hundreds of survey responses back from the grassroots. I think those will be extremely helpful to the commission as they look at different things. And I think it brings some great insight that maybe we might not think about here at the building. And so I'm excited about that. I know a lot of them were very constructive, which was incredible to see, to be honest. And I appreciate everyone who answered those. So, with the commission, what's your hopeful timeline to have results from that?
I think the target here is try to do it in 4 to 6 weeks. So we have a terrific group of people from across the state. A lot of folks in the grassroots, some elected officials, former elected officials. I mean, it's really a good group. So I'm excited about that. We're hoping 4 to 6 weeks. But I have said to John and to others who are going to be on the commission, I want a result. I mean, we've always been part of, or a lot of us have been part of these post things where it's like, goes on and on forever, and then you never really get recommendations or they don't get adopted. It just sits on the shelf, and we're not going to do that. We're going to take the recommendations seriously.
Yeah, so outside of the commission, what else is the party working on right now, and how can the grassroots continue to be involved?
Yeah, so much going on right now. Election integrity team working on poll worker recruitment. So we remember from 2 years ago, we had this huge poll worker recruitment program. We recruited over 5,800 poll workers. So why did we have to do it 2 years ago versus last year, the election year? The reason is this: state law says that for poll worker recruitment, it has to be done in the election before, or in the year before the election year. So that is to say, last, November of 2023, we had to recruit all these thousands of people statewide for the election in 2024. Well, here we are in that cycle again. We're in the off year in 2025. So by this November of 2025, we recruit poll workers for next year, for 2026. So we're going now. We had fabulous. I mean, we had such good success in recruiting poll workers, thanks to our great volunteers and grassroots. And we're setting the goal higher this time to get even more statewide. I mean, we take election integrity very, very seriously here, and we showed it in the last cycle. And so that's a huge focus right now is election integrity, and people may be hearing, or they can step up and volunteer. Talk to Jenna Banfield, who's great, does our election integrity project here at the state party. We can't win elections without it. Got to do it.
Yeah, I think the election integrity efforts that we have going on are going to be great. We actually have Jenna coming on the podcast in the next segment to talk about the poll worker recruitment program. So everyone will get to hear more about that and find out some more information there. Is there anything else the party's up to right now?
Yeah, tons. Our farm team initiative. What a great success. This honestly is one of the best success stories from the party in the last 5 years. Our farm team, that is to say, where we recruit local candidates, help fund them, help train them. This year, we trained over 100 candidates statewide, and dozens of those people won this past April. It was another really big night. It's a great effort for the Republican Party and for county. That partnership for the state party and the county parties is fantastic. We put dozens and dozens of people in office this year that were either identified or stepped up and wanted to get trained and wanted to have us help them. Dozens of people across the state who wouldn't have gotten elected otherwise. It's a terrific success story, and we have put hundreds in the last 5 years. This effort kind of more specifically started 5 years ago. And so we've put hundreds of people into office in the last 5 years. And we're going to continue to do so in 2026. Also, this podcast, what we're doing right now to expose the far left ideologies of the Democratic Party. Look, a lot of people are watching. No, I'm a Republican from Madison, Wisconsin. I mean, I know what it's like growing up around left wing ideologies because I was seeing it when I was a little kid, you know? And so we have 72 counties in this state. The election is not just about Madison or just about Milwaukee or just about any city. It's about 72 counties. This podcast allows us to talk to thousands of people around the state and to provide regular updates and information. So I'm super excited about it, having us do this.
I am too. I think it's going to be a great way to fight against the Democrat machine. Obviously, a lot of state parties have started up podcasts. I think they've gone over super well. So I'm excited for Wisconsin to now have one as well.
I've been on some of the podcasts in the other states, and it's fun to do because I'll get a call and ask to jump on and talk about grassroots organizing or what's going on around the country. And Wisconsin, having been a target state, we are the one of the 7 target states in this whole country. So the podcast is important to do. I'm glad we're doing this.
I agree. As many as of us know, next week is state convention. What are your hopes for next weekend, and what would you like to see the party accomplish?
Yeah, so excited about being back up in Wausau. I've chaired a convention up there before, and it's just a great opportunity for everyone to pull together. We'll have hundreds of people there in Wausau, which, by the way, you know, a reminder, a critical area of the state for the president and the president's campaign. I talked to the president about that multiple times about where he was going in the state. He was obviously there more than once down in Mosinee. So just a critical part of the state, an opportunity to get together, to learn together. Friday afternoon, great trainings on Friday afternoon if people are available to do that. And of course, we'll hear from our delegation and legislators and other folks. Governor Tommy Thompson's going to be joining us to speak at the convention. We'll have resolutions, hospitality rooms the night before. We'll have the county chairs. I mean, it's going to be terrific and a great opportunity for people to pull together, to celebrate victories, to mourn a few losses, and to go, look, how do we win in this state and do it together? So I'm always excited about convention, and I don't want to even mention what number of convention this has been for me, but they've been many dozens. Let's put it that way.
I'm super excited for convention. It'll be a great time. We hope to see everyone and also obviously get feedback on the podcast, which I hope goes over super well.
And I would say to people who are watching us, I'll be all over convention. I usually am. They've got me running all over convention. But if you have a question, if you order, stop me. You know, I may not be able to talk super long if I'm running around to do stuff, but stop me or give me your email or something like that. Because honestly, one of the things that's been helpful for me as chair and over the years, I've been traveling the state for decades, literally. I've worked for 3 former Republican governors, including Governor Walker, Governor Thompson, Governor McCallum. I've been through all 72 counties. I've spoken at them. I've been run campaigns or been part of campaigns in dozens of them, as well as statewide. So I always say, you know, some of my best whatever, right, is just people coming up to me and giving me input. It probably drives everyone around here nuts because I'll come back to the office, my head full of ideas that somebody gave me. But stop me at convention. I like talking to people and I like hearing direct input. So, but I look forward to seeing everybody at convention. It'll be great.
Thank you so much for giving a party update. Up next, we will be going over poll worker recruitment with Jenna. So earlier in this podcast, we heard a lot from Representative Brian Stile and Chairman Schimming as they discussed the SAVE Act, which is going to be crucial for election integrity efforts across the nation. But here in Wisconsin, we have our own efforts going on, including our poll worker initiative. And so we want to have our election integrity director, Jenna Banfield, on here today. So Jenna, I will let you introduce yourself.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Annika. I am the Republican Party of Wisconsin's election integrity director. So I started working on election integrity in central and southern Wisconsin, and I eventually transitioned to our state director at the start of 2025.
So I know recently you've been talking a lot about poll workers and your recruitment program that just started up. So what should county party chairs and grassroots activists be looking for in relation to becoming a poll worker and the recruitment program that you started up here?
Yeah, so our election inspector recruitment program officially kicked off on May 5th. We've really done a lot of preparation to make sure that this process is running smoothly for everyone that's looking to get involved. So, for our grassroots and volunteers, really the biggest thing is going to be keeping an eye out for the election integrity newsletter. That goes out every other week, and that newsletter is going to include a lot of important information. So, it'll have sign up information, any reminders for poll workers. We'll have training resources on there, and then just kind of our overall information about the poll worker program overall. If you're not already signed up for that newsletter, we'll make sure to put the link in the show notes so you're able to go ahead and get signed up for that. In terms of our county chairs and other leadership, it's really going to be crucial to have a dedicated team working on recruiting and educating potential volunteers on what it means to become a paid election inspector. So each of our county parties are going to kind of lead a recruitment effort across the state, and that'll be with guidance and support from my team, of course. But really, our goal is to make the election inspector position as accessible to anyone who's interested as we can. We really want more people getting involved in this election process overall.
So all of these recruitment items sound absolutely amazing. It sounds like you put a lot of prep work into planning for this initiative. But for those who may not know what a poll worker does, can you explain what they do, what their responsibilities are?
Yeah, absolutely. So, election inspectors are really crucial when it comes to election integrity and ensuring that our elections are administered properly. They play a direct role in ensuring that only qualified citizens are allowed to cast ballots, which is obviously very important. But they also have a special standing as a partisan nominee that gives them a specific administrative advantage. So, for example, our Republican nominees as election inspectors actually get priority scheduling and priority locations for election day. They also have additional oversight when it comes to verifying and signing off on certain documents and materials at the end of the night on election day. So, it really gives us multiple forms of accountability, having Republican eyes on kind of all steps of the process. These nominees also have a unique opportunity to be appointed to different pre election positions. So this can include early in-person voting or being a special voting deputy. Those are going to be our people that go into nursing homes and care facilities. So that gives us kind of an additional level of oversight. And these roles really provide us some important access to keep an eye on absentee voting and make sure that it's conducted properly in the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, it definitely is important to have those people in these key positions across the state throughout the election cycle. And obviously, they have a big stake in making our elections secure. I'm sure you also get a lot of questions about what shifts look like. How do you know if you're chosen and if you get paid for working? Could you answer those questions quickly just for everyone listening?
Yeah, so that's a great question. In terms of kind of the shifts and the time frames that you can work as an election inspector, it's going to vary quite a bit depending on where you live in the state. Most of our municipalities, they'll either offer a full day shift or a partial day shift, and that can be flexible to whatever you're available to do. They do also have additional shifts available during early voting that you can work too. All of our election inspectors are paid for their time. They're actually paid by the city. So, again, that rate's going to vary depending on where you're at in the state. Now, for the selection process, we submit all of our nominations to the respective clerk's offices at the end of November this year. So, once those are submitted, you will be contacted by that municipal clerk. They'll kind of inform you of the next steps and what will happen. But you'll officially be nominated at the end of December. And then you do have to take an oath of office within 5 days of that appointment. But those election inspector nominations actually run for a 2-year time frame. So once you're appointed this December, you will actually be able to continue being a poll worker until December of 2027. After that point, you'd have to renew then that appointment.
Jenna, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all the great information. If people have more questions or want to sign up, especially before that November date when nominations close, how can they reach you?
Yeah, so if people have questions or they're interested in learning more about our program and becoming a paid election inspector, they can sign up. There will be a link in the notes, and that is where you can fill out and submit your information to become a poll worker nominee. You can also send me an email at jbanfield@wis.gop. So, like I mentioned, we'll be hosting trainings throughout November. The details for those, the links and everything will be in our newsletter. You can also find that on the wisgop.org events page. So, Annika, I really appreciate you having me, and thank you to everybody listening. I hope to be working with you here in the near future.
Thank you so much, Jenna.